We're in the final stages of our 18-month-long process of talking about how we can not only save America's wetland, but develop resilient communities in those areas that are dramatically affected by coastal loss.
And how is that going to happen?
Well, you know, it's been a series of public meetings to have discussions about what communities want their future to look like. And as a result of all these meetings, this is the last one before the culminating event in New Orleans in a short time. And we'll gather all this information together and put it together and talk about what we can do to build resilient communities across the Gulf Coast, not just in Louisiana, but across the entire coast.
What kind of response have you had from the communities around the Gulf Coast?
Well, it's been overwhelming, and as you can imagine, this is not an issue that is without controversy. There's obviously a lot of discussion about what the appropriate solutions are to address coastal erosion, coastal loss, and to deal with how communities can survive and flourish in the future in the face of the constant barrage of wind and rain and just natural land loss that Louisiana has experienced over the course of the past 100 years. But it's been very encouraging and a lot of great input from people who are directly affected, and I think it's going to yield some very positive results at the end of the day.
The wetlands of South Louisiana support energy. They support the fisheries, the estuaries of the marine life. A huge amount of seafood comes from Louisiana. The migratory waterfowl come through here in droves, the Central and Mississippi Flyway. The people that live along the coast, they need to have their homes preserved. The whole conference is here on Avery Island is one of 11 or 12 different resiliency forums, and Avery Island is almost emblematic of some of the problems because we're right in the middle of the marshland.
What does the research show about what would happen to the entire coastal area if nothing is done?
Well, it's staggering, and that's why the solution is not to do nothing. The one thing we know we cannot do is nothing. We have to do something. When you look at the maps that project land loss over the course of the next 50 years, it's absolutely staggering. And so we've got to do something to make certain that we don't sustain the type of losses that are going to be anticipated if we sit back and do nothing.
We published a Gulf Coast adaptation study, and what it is taking a look at coastal communities from Alabama all the way down to Texas, 70 miles inland, and taking a look at the assets that are there. Did some modeling on different scenarios today, looking at 2030 and 2050 and 2100, and came up with average annual losses. And the idea of the study was to try to come up with a consistent fact base that we could use to test out adaptation investments that would reduce losses going into the future. And one of the things that we found was that, first of all, the return period on storms, looking at these future scenarios, goes from a 1 in 100-year storm to a 1 in 40-year storm. So that $150 billion loss that we had with Katrina could happen twice in a lifetime instead of once. The other thing was that the 1 in 100-year storm, the damage from that goes from 150 up to 200 billion. So that was findings from the study. In addition to that, you know, we have a problem today. It isn't a climate problem. It's $14 billion of average annual loss that increases to $19 billion in 2030 just based upon economic growth and subsidence, and issues have nothing to do with climate change. But it's a problem that gets worse with climate change. So when we took a look at the scenarios in the future of these climate scenarios, it added loss, added risk that we had to manage.
Tell us a little bit about what's the solution from everything that you've been able to gather. What's the answer to reduce that risk?
There are a number of cost-effective investments that you can make, but we all have to do it, each of us individually. For example, improve building codes, makes homes stronger during hurricanes, elevation of structures are things that are cost effective to do, are going to be paid for by homeowners. The utility can harden its assets in certain areas to reduce losses. Customers can elevate their equipment and make it more resilient to storms. And when we do those things together, we actually reduce losses, we reduce business interruption that comes from these storms. we found that that there are probably about $7 billion of cost-effective investments. So we could reduce our risk, essentially by 2030, we could reduce our risk back to where it is today. The remainder of that risk would have to be through insurance or other means to deal with that. The other thing that's very important, though, is there's a certain amount of investments that require public funding. Things like wetlands restoration, building levees, beach renourishment, barrier island restoration are things that we need to have public funding for. And developing these multiple lines of defense have a number of benefits beyond just protecting against the losses to assets from wind, from storm surge and flooding. So in addition to those things that we can do ourselves, probably about a third of those cost-effective measures that I mentioned would require some sort of public funding.
My area in St. Mary Parish is a little different than any state or any parish or any county in the United States. We do have the Chapel River coming through St. Mary Parish, and also the Wax Lake Outlet, which we are building up Delta in St. Mary Parish. 1/3 of our parish, the other 2/3 we're losing about a lot of wetlands every year along our coastline. We border the Gulf of Mexico in St. Mary Parish, and it's really bad. We do have a number of projects on the books to restore our coastline, so hopefully that come to pass.
I appreciate such a large and looking around energetic crowd that showed up today. We are in our 10th forum, and it's fitting that we are able to be here on Avery Island, a place very emblematic of what the beauty of South Louisiana holds and is, and hopefully will be. And the will be part is what we're very concerned about. As you know, we're having the greatest land loss on the planet here in Louisiana, and it is happening faster than we ever had imagined it would. And our job today is to have a discussion and follow on the 9 other meetings that we've had in Louisiana, Texas, Alabama, and Florida, and Mississippi. Those discussions have been very enlightening. It really speaks to the purpose of why we decided as a foundation to do these programs. And that is because the voice of the local citizenry has not really elevated with its good ideas and really its hope for the future into some of the circles that make policy or make policy that makes it difficult for us to save our wetlands. And so we come here today to look forward, not to look back, to learn about the region that Iberia and St. Mary Parish really is at the core of, and to come up with solutions to add to the recommendations that we've had from the other areas. I'm going to turn the program over for a moment to our Lieutenant Governor, who is chairman of the entire Blue Ribbon Resiliency program. And I will say Jay has been with us for many of our sessions and has spent the kind of quality time with this issue that you rarely see from a public elected official. It speaks volumes to us that the highest offices of Louisiana are very involved, from the governor's office on down through lieutenant governor's office. Secretary of Agriculture is working with us on some programs. The insurance commissioner is working with us. Of course, the delegation. But Jay has taken a special interest, and we welcome him, we thank him, and turn it over to you for some comments, Jay.
Thank you all for being here this morning, and I want to first thank the America's Wetland Foundation for the leadership that they have exhibited in corralling people all across the Gulf South to address this most important issue, and for the leadership that that organization has provided in setting a vision for what we can do to create a sustainable Gulf Coast, not only in Louisiana but across the entire Gulf region that is, and it's a regional issue. Paul, I want to thank you for hosting us today. I'll just say as an aside, all of you know this is the 200th birthday, 200th anniversary of statehood for Louisiana. I published yesterday or earlier this week a list of the 200 most notable people in Louisiana history in recognition of Louisiana's 200 years, and Edmund McIlhenny is on that list, of course, for what he contributed in originating Tabasco, in 1868? It was in 1868, and now you find Tabasco products everywhere you go. It's a staple, and it's representative of Louisiana. When people see that iconic Tabasco logo, they think Louisiana, and that's a very important part of what Louisiana's branding is all about, is for people to recognize our state for the unique nature of what we provide to the rest of the world. And really that's part of what this effort is about. Louisiana's Energy Coast, Louisiana's Gulf Coast not only provides an economic engine for this state, it's an economic engine for the nation. And the America's Wetland Foundation is aptly named because this is America's wetland, and it is America that is at risk, not just Louisiana's coast, not just those of us in our neighboring states in the South, but this is a national issue, and whatever we can do to raise the profile of this issue, not only through the people of this state who are directly impacted, but through policymakers across the country, it's very important. And that's why these meetings have been so impressive and so important. I have been fortunate enough to attend, I think, 7 of them. I missed a couple of the out-of-state ones during the course of the past year, but I've been to every one of them that's been held in Louisiana, and the purpose of these meetings is to get input from the citizenry and to hear from them and hear from those people who are directly impacted on the ground and on the water, and whose destiny and whose family's destiny in the future depends upon the decisions that are made in the wake of these meetings, because the decisions that we are going to have to make, because making no decision and taking no action is not an option. We have to do something. We have to recognize the realities with which we are faced, and we want to make smart decisions, and we want to make decisions that are rooted in what preserves the culture of Louisiana and the heritage of Louisiana, and enables us to move forward for the next 200 years, knowing that Louisianians are going to be able to celebrate their cultural diversity and live in a place where they want to live successfully and fruitfully. And to do that, we've got to address head-on these very challenging problems that we face with the loss of our coastal land. And these meetings have proven energetic and productive, and not without controversy, as you would expect, because these decisions are not easy, and we have to talk about them. We have to talk about solutions. We have to talk about the difficulty of the solutions. We have to talk about setting priorities and recognizing the reality that there is going to be continual loss of land, and we've got to be smart about how we try and address that. So I thank all of you for being here today. I encourage you to speak up, and this is a participatory discussion that will take place throughout the day today. I'm going to have to leave in a little bit before noon because I've got to get back to Baton Rouge, so I won't be here for the entirety of the discussion, but I want to encourage all of you to please let your voices be heard. All of these meetings have been recorded. There's going to be a very careful review of everything that is said, and this will culminate with one final meeting in New Orleans in a couple of months, I guess. And then the America's Wetland Foundation will take the initiative to develop a report based upon the information that is gathered. And that report is going to be made available to policymakers throughout the South and throughout the nation. And the important end game is going to be deliver a message to our representatives in Washington from all the Gulf Coast states to hopefully speak with a collective voice to make certain that people across the country who are in decision-making positions recognize that they have an obligation to this part of the world that is so important in the economic vitality of America. And if we can get the Gulf Coast states speaking with one collective voice, we have a tremendous potential for success at the national level, because there is going to have to be some federal involvement, obviously, in the ultimate solution, as well as a commitment of state resources from Louisiana as well as from our neighboring states. So again, thanks very much to all of you for being here, and thanks to Paul for hosting us today, and thanks to most of all to the Foundation for providing this very important initiative.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Darden. The Foundation over time has had several policies that we've recommended, and one early on was no net loss of wetlands, and we strive every day to see if we can make that happen. There's another, that's no net loss of culture, and this is about the communities who settled South Louisiana and the people who live here, and they're all types, as you know, all races, all creeds, all types of people who've made their way through the swamps of Louisiana, and to keep their families here. representative of that, I don't know another family that has many multi-generational ties to the land as Paul McIlhenny and the McIlhenny Company and the family that has supported it for generations. And Paul, thank you for letting us come here. It means a lot to be in the thick of where the ecosystem is. So I'd like to turn the program over to you and for a few remarks and with our thanks.
We wanted to host one of these 11 Blue Ribbon Resilient Community Forums, so that's why we're here today. And one of the reasons is that the island, Avery Island, is 195 years next year. Our family will have been here. We're into the 9th generation in the Avery McIlhenny family, and this little old place is nestled right in the middle of South Iberia Parish, which is coastal wetlands, a swamp, marsh, bayous, canals, and so we're right in the middle of the wetlands. Now, we're very high. We're 163 feet or so above sea level, so we don't get flooding, but we do get coastal erosion along the Intercoastal Waterway and along Bayou Petitons, which surrounds Avery Island. I've had a lot of friends come down and go fishing and hunting with me, and they marvel at the beauty of our marshes and our wetlands, and they're totally unaware of the fragility of these marshes and the need for their repair and restoration. And time is running short, so we can choose between resiliency or not, and if we lose it, shame on us. We want to leave them the legacy that our 9 generations of our family have been leaving our own family here on Avery Island. I've asked my cousin, Harold Took Osborne. Took has developed a very good sustainability report for us that we give to major customers around the country when asked. And he's also helped put together, he's also in charge of the marsh management. And we planted a lot of smooth cord grass and bullwhip around the levees of our canals and bayous. He's also, he oversees that, and he's been instrumental in helping form the Rainy Conservation Alliance. They're doing a great job. They also oversee and help restore the marsh of about 165,000 acres in South Vermilion Parish. So thanks you all for doing that.
One of the themes that I want you to take away from here is urgency, is that we need to move with haste on this. If you do nothing less when you move here, you live here, you know that. Jay talked about here in Louisiana, we have disappearing coastlines that are greater than any place in the United States. We have wetlands that are disappearing faster than anywhere in the United States. So we're kind of at target zero here, and we don't have time to wait. We cannot let this beauty disappear for future generations. It's really important. And I just want to impress upon you that unless we take immediate action with a consolidated voice here in the Gulf Coast, 2 generations from now, we're not going to be able to, those people are not going to be able to walk on the same coastlines and go through the same wetlands, even have the same houses. We're going to be telling them stories. This is where your great-grandfather and your grandmother used to live. This is where we used to fish. So unless we want to convert the beauty that we have into just memories, we need to act now with urgency, and not only from the state level, but also at the national level. So thank you for being here today, and hopefully when you walk out the door today, you're going to know with one voice, we need to move this quickly to Washington to get some national response on why not only the beauty's here, but 40% of the nation's energy is generated from the Gulf Coast. So if we go down the tubes, there's not going to be any lights in New York. Thank you.
We had in Delcom, as I understand it, 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago, a storm come through that had water on the roads there, and that's unusual. In South Terrebonne Parish, they had water over the roads, and one of the berms that the parish had paid for to put out in the marsh breached in 6 places, which showed that this is not a storm event, I mean a hurricane event, but moving into a storm event circumstance that we're facing. And so I don't think the public understands that. I don't think the public understand why there's water in Delcom. It's a creeping kind of atmosphere that we have, and the environment's getting really closer to us in terms of the water environment.
What's your reaction to the efforts that have been made so far by the America's Wetlands Foundation?
I think they've been great. They've identified barriers to getting work done. They've definitely brought the community together, created an awareness of those, how important these wetlands are to our communities.
This is a long time in coming. I'm glad we got together, everybody's getting together. In Louisiana, we are working very, very hard to save our coastline. As you know, we're losing about a football field a minute in Louisiana, and all the parish presidents and all the mayors and everything are getting together to make a difference in Louisiana.
You get a lot of input from citizens. You have government leaders. You have officials with non-governmental organizations. You have people who are involved in the process of trying to save America's wetland, all providing input. So it's a very encouraging process. It has been for every one of these. I had to miss ones in a couple of meetings in Texas and one in Alabama, but I've been to every other meeting across Louisiana. So it's been a tremendous amount of input that we've heard from people.